My fiancé picked a party with her male best friend after my surgery. So I called off the wedding, gave back the ring, and threw her out. 3 months later, she came back crying. I never thought a 15-foot fall could be the least painful thing to happen to me that week. But the concrete was nothing compared to the betrayal that came just 72 hours later, and I was about to learn just how disposable I really was. The air always felt a little cleaner up on those poles, the world a bit quieter, but that morning, the only sound was the sickening crunch that echoed in my ears long after I hit the ground. My name's Liam, and for almost 10 years, I've been a lineman. You see guys get hurt out here, guys quit, guys who think they're invincible until they lose everything. I was one of those guys, right up until a corroded mounting bracket decided to give me a brutal reality check. It was a routine job, early September. Replacing a blown fuse, residential pole, maybe 15 feet up. Something I'd done 1,000 times. Clipped in, harness checked, started on the connections, and then it hit me, that stomach-lurching shift when metal that's supposed to hold you just gives out. The bracket snapped. My safety line caught hard, and my shoulder made a sound I will never, ever forget. Like crushing a bag of chips, but amplified, horrifying. Even with the line, the shock load was too much. I hit the ground, anyway. For a few seconds, I just lay there, staring at the sky, my own voice repeating the same stupid question, did we install the fuse? Did we install the fuse? I just kept saying it, like a broken record. My crew boss, Ben, was yelling at me to stay still, but I couldn't even process anything. They loaded me into an ambulance, and all the way to the hospital, I could only think about Chloe. My fiancée. I just knew she was going to lose her mind. Chloe and I had been together for 3 years, engaged for 8 months. Before that fall, I honestly thought we were solid. She worked in social media for a yoga studio, green juice aesthetics, sunset stretches, always talking about freedom, creativity, not being tied to a 9-to-5. And I respected that, I really did. Even if it meant I was covering literally everything, rent, utilities, insurance, the car payments on the Jeep we co-signed for, groceries, all the subscriptions. I'd even bought her a new phone a few months prior because she said she needed it for content creation. If it made her happy, it felt worth it. She could be sweet, affectionate, always saying she appreciated me. But looking back now, the cracks were always there. And her best friend, Kevin, well, he was definitely one of those cracks. Kevin was 30, owned a bike shop downtown, and had this weird, territorial energy, like he was constantly testing how much space he could take up in my life. He had the code to our apartment, would just walk in without knocking, sit in my chair, drink my beer, and make these little jokes that weren't really jokes at all. More like jabs wrapped in humor, so you couldn't call him out without looking sensitive. Once, he looked right at me, while Chloe was in the kitchen, and said, "Bro, you're lucky she even tolerates you," and then laughed like it was the funniest thing in the world. I didn't laugh. Chloe did. After the fall, I had surgery for my shoulder. Tore the labrum, some nerve damage. They said I'd need at least 6 weeks before even thinking about light duty. I woke up in the hospital, and Chloe was right there, sitting next to me. She squeezed my good hand and said, "I'll take care of you." And I believed her. The first 2 days home? They were okay. She brought me water, helped adjust the sling, even made soup once. But by day 3, things started to shift. She was glued to her phone, constantly ordering food delivery, but always just enough for 2 people. And when I'd ask who was coming over, she'd get defensive. "I'm allowed to have friends, Liam." I wasn't trying to control her. I was just lying there, in my apartment, wondering why she was treating me like an inconvenience. Then, one afternoon, I was drifting in and out on the couch, pain meds making everything hazy, and I heard her voice from the bedroom. She was leaving a voice message for her friend Ashley. And what she said: "He's turning into dead weight." I didn't sign up to be a nurse. My stomach just dropped. Dead weight. That's what I was to her now. Not her fiancé, seriously injured. Not the guy who'd been paying for her entire life for 3 years. Just dead weight. I couldn't say anything. I was too out of it, too shocked. But that moment? It burned itself into my brain. The next evening, Kevin showed up. 2 bags, some craft IPAs, and a bottle of cheap whiskey. He walked right past me like I wasn't even there, and said to Chloe, "You ready to forget your problems tonight?" I was the problem. I was lying there with my arm in a sling, barely able to lift a water bottle, and this guy was talking about me like I was some obstacle to their fun. Chloe didn't correct him. She just laughed, grabbed 2 glasses from the cabinet. They sat in the living room, maybe 6 feet from me, drinking, talking, laughing. Every once in a while, she'd glance over, like checking to see if I was still breathing. I closed my eyes, pretended to sleep, because I just couldn't deal with whatever this was. But I heard everything. Kevin was talking about some concert coming up, an indie band downtown. And Chloe was saying how badly she wanted to go, how she needed to get out, how she felt trapped. Trapped. I'd been home from the hospital for less than a week. And she already felt trapped. I wanted to get up, tell them both to get out. But I couldn't move without pain shooting through my entire upper body. So I just lay there, listening, hating every second of it. That night, after Kevin finally left, Chloe came over to the couch, asked if I needed anything. I just looked at her and said no. She shrugged, went to bed, didn't even say goodnight. I stayed on that couch, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in my head. The fall, the surgery, that voice message, Kevin's smug face. And then I realized something that made my chest feel hollow. I wasn't her partner. I was her safety net. The second I couldn't perform that role anymore, I became disposable. I didn't know it yet, but that night was the beginning of the end. Because in 3 more days, she was going to make a choice that would absolutely destroy everything. And when she did, I was going to make damn sure she regretted it for the rest of her life. 3 days after Kevin showed up with the whiskey, my sister, Sarah, arrived unannounced. The second she walked through the door, I knew someone was about to have a very bad day. Sarah's 35, works in corporate law. She has this energy that just makes people straighten their spines and shut their mouths without her saying a word. She took one look at me on the couch. One look at Chloe scrolling through her phone in the kitchen. And one look at Kevin sprawled out in my recliner like he owned the place. Her face went completely neutral. That's when you know she's at her most dangerous. She walked straight over to Kevin, stood directly in front of him, and told him to get off my couch. It wasn't a request. It was a statement of fact. Kevin tried to laugh it off, did this whole awkward chuckle thing, mumbled something about just hanging out, but Sarah didn't move. Didn't blink. Just stared at him until he got up, muttered something about needing to go anyway, and practically ran out the door. Chloe came out of the kitchen, immediately launching into this performance. Suddenly, she was the concerned fiancée, asking if I needed anything, offering coffee, smiling at Sarah like they were old friends. Sarah smiled back, but I could see it didn't reach her eyes. For the next 3 days, Chloe played the role perfectly. Brought me water, adjusted my pillow, sat with me during meals. But the second Sarah left the room or went to the store, that mask dropped. She'd be right back on her phone, texting constantly. I started paying attention to the patterns. Every time I was supposed to be asleep or medicated, she'd move to the bedroom. Her voice would get quieter, more secretive. And once, I caught a glimpse of her screen. Kevin's name at the top of the conversation. I didn't say anything. I just filed it away. Because I was starting to understand that something way worse than simple neglect was happening here. On the 4th day after Sarah arrived, around 2 in the afternoon, I asked Chloe if she could grab my pain medication from the pharmacy. I was running low, couldn't drive. She looked at me like I'd just asked her to donate a kidney, snapped back, "I'm getting ready." "Why can't you do it yourself?" "Getting ready for what?" I had no idea. But Sarah overheard from the hallway and walked into the living room with a look on her face that made my stomach tighten. She asked Chloe what she was getting ready for. Chloe immediately got defensive. Said it was none of her business. Said she was allowed to have a life. Then the door opened. And Kevin walked in. Not in his usual sloppy jeans and hoodie, but dressed like he was going somewhere nice. Button-up shirt, clean boots, cologne I could smell from across the room. Sarah looked at him, then at Chloe, and I watched her piece it all together in real time. Chloe grabbed her purse and announced they were getting a hotel downtown. Said there was a concert tonight, and they didn't want to drive back late. The room went completely silent. Sarah turned to her, her voice still calm, but with an edge that could cut glass. So you're leaving him alone, recovering from surgery, to get a hotel with another man? Chloe's face flushed. She started throwing out every manipulation tactic in the book. Said Sarah was controlling. Said I was insecure. Said she deserved to have fun after spending days taking care of me, which was rich, considering she'd barely done anything. I just sat there, watching this whole awful play unfold. And then I noticed something on the side table next to the couch. Her engagement ring. She'd taken it off. Left it there like it was junk mail. When I pointed at it, she had the audacity to say it didn't match her outfit. Like that was a reasonable excuse for abandoning the symbol of our entire relationship. Something broke inside me. Not dramatic, not loud, just a quiet snap, like a cable under too much tension finally giving out. I looked at her, looked at Kevin standing there with his hands in his pockets, trying to act invisible, and I said the only thing I could manage, have fun. My voice was flat. Emotionless. And I think that scared her more than if I'd yelled. She hesitated for a second, like she was waiting for me to beg or argue. But I just turned my head and stared at the TV. They left. I heard them laughing in the hallway as the door closed. And that laugh? That's what sealed it. The second they were gone, Sarah pulled out her phone and called our best friend, Josh. When he answered, she didn't even say hello. Just told him to get over here because we were doing this tonight. Josh showed up 20 minutes later, took one look at me, asked if she'd finally crossed the line. I just nodded. What happened next was the most surgically precise dismantling of a relationship I've ever witnessed. Sarah pulled out her laptop, started making a list. Josh grabbed a notepad. They turned my living room into a war room. First step, finances. Sarah logged into my accounts, started separating everything. Moved money into a new account Chloe didn't have access to. Cancelled the credit card she used. Removed her from my car insurance. Second step, the apartment. Josh called a locksmith, paid extra for same-day service, and by 9 p.m. we had new locks on the door. Third step, the wedding. Sarah started calling vendors, told them the wedding was cancelled. Most of the deposits were in my name, so she got partial refunds on the venue, the caterer, the photographer. She was so efficient, it was terrifying. While they handled logistics, I sat there feeling this weird mix of relief and rage. I'd been carrying this woman for 3 years, paying for everything, supporting her dreams. And the second I needed support, she bolted to a hotel with another man. We packed up her stuff, not carelessly, but definitely not gently. Boxed up her clothes, her yoga mats, her crystals, all the little things she'd scattered around my apartment like she owned it. Josh found an empty box, grabbed a marker, and wrote on the side in big letters, "Kevin could help with this one." I actually laughed. For the first time in days. Around midnight, Sarah asked if I was sure about this, if I maybe wanted to sleep on it. I just showed her the ring, still sitting on the side table where Chloe had left it. Sarah picked it up, looked at it, and put it in a small envelope with a note that simply said, "You forgot something." At 1 a.m, my phone buzzed. A text from Chloe. A little heart emoji. "Might stay longer, don't wait up." I showed it to Sarah. She smiled. Actually smiled. Said, "That's perfect." She just put it in writing. Josh cracked open a beer, handed one to Sarah, asked if I wanted one. But I was still on pain meds, so I passed. We sat there in my apartment, surrounded by boxes of her stuff stacked by the door. And I felt lighter than I had in months. I wasn't sad. I wasn't heartbroken. I was just done. And that clarity? That was the best painkiller I could have asked for. Sunday morning hit like a freight train. Not for me, though. For Chloe. I was in the kitchen with Sarah, having coffee, when my phone started blowing up. Text after text, call after call, all from Chloe. The first message came in around 11, asking why her key wasn't working. Then another one 5 minutes later, her card got declined at the coffee shop. Then a voice message where I could actually hear the panic starting to creep into her voice, asking what was going on. I didn't respond to any of it. Just put my phone on silent, slid it across the table to Sarah. She read through the messages with this incredibly satisfied look on her face. Around noon, Chloe showed up at the apartment building. I knew because the front desk called, asking if I was expecting anyone. I told them no. And not to let her up. She tried buzzing anyway, over and over. Eventually, she was in the hallway right outside my door, and I could hear her out there, losing her mind. Yelling about how this was abusive, how I couldn't just lock her out of her own home. Except it wasn't her home. Her name wasn't on the lease. She'd never paid a single month of rent. Legally, she had zero claim to anything. Josh was still there from the night before. He looked through the peephole and said she was on her phone, crying, probably calling someone for backup. Turns out, that someone was Kevin. About 20 minutes later, he showed up. I heard him in the hallway, trying to calm her down, telling her they'd figure it out. But his voice had this edge to it, like he really didn't want to be there. She asked him if she could stay at his place while she sorted this out. And there was this long pause. The kind of pause that says everything. Then he said something about his roommate not being cool with it, and how he had to get to work. Just like that, he bailed. Left her sitting there in the hallway. I heard his footsteps getting quieter as he walked away. The next few days were chaos for her. I know because mutual friends started reaching out, asking what happened. Apparently, Chloe was telling everyone I'd snapped and kicked her out for no reason. Her friend Ashley, the one she'd been talking to on that voice message, apparently heard the full story and went radio silent on Chloe. That told me everything I needed to know about how believable her version was. The wedding vendors started reaching out to her, too, confirming cancellations. She tried calling a few of them back, asking if they could reverse it, but they told her the person who paid the deposits had canceled, so there was nothing to reverse. She posted something vague on social media about betrayal and learning who people really are. I didn't respond, didn't engage. Just let her spiral while I focused on getting my life back. My shoulder was healing slower than I wanted, but I was getting mobility back. Ben called to say they had light-duty work available in dispatch if I wanted it, answering calls, coordinating crews. Nothing physical, but enough to make me feel useful again. I took it, started going in a few hours a day. It felt good to be around the guys again, to have a purpose beyond just sitting on my couch, replaying the worst week of my life. I started looking at houses. Nothing fancy, but something with a garage where I could set up a workshop, maybe do some side work, fixing equipment, small engines, things I could do even with my shoulder not at full strength. By the end of October, I'd found a place. A small 2-bedroom about 20 minutes outside the city, with a decent-sized garage and a yard. I put an offer in, and it got accepted. Moving out of that apartment felt like shedding dead skin. Boxing up my stuff, leaving behind all the memories of Chloe and Kevin and that whole toxic situation. Sarah helped me move. Josh helped me move. By mid-November, I was in my own house, my own space, with new locks that only I had keys to. I started sleeping better, eating better, even going to physical therapy consistently, because I actually had the mental energy to care about my recovery. Around the 3-month mark, mid-December, I was in my garage working on an old lawnmower engine when I heard a car pull up in my driveway. I walked out and saw Chloe sitting in a beat-up sedan I didn't recognize. And when she got out, I barely recognized her either. She'd lost weight, looked exhausted, had this defeated energy that was so different from the confident woman who'd walked out of my apartment with Kevin 3 months ago. She asked if we could talk. I didn't let her inside. Just stood there on the porch with my arms crossed, waiting to hear whatever she came to say. She started with an apology, said she'd made a huge mistake. Said she didn't realize what she had until it was gone. All the standard lines people say when they torch their life and want someone else to put out the fire. Then she dropped the bomb. She told me she was pregnant. And before I could even process that, she added that it was Kevin's. I felt absolutely nothing. No anger, no jealousy, no satisfaction. Just this cold, empty feeling, like I was watching a stranger tell me about their problems. I asked her why she was telling me this. She said Kevin had ghosted her completely, wouldn't answer her calls or texts, and she had nowhere else to go. Her parents were helping, but they were furious with her. She was working 2 jobs trying to save money. And she looked at me with these desperate eyes and said, "You're a good man. You could still be the father. We could still be a family." I actually laughed. Couldn't help it, because the audacity of that statement was so insane, it looped back around to being genuinely funny. Josh chose that exact moment to pull up with some materials I'd asked him to grab from the hardware store. And when he got out of his truck and saw Chloe standing there, he just said, "Oh my God, she's speedrunning bad decisions." Which made me laugh even harder. I looked at Chloe and told her to call her soulmate, the guy she chose over me when I couldn't even lift my own arm. I told her she could lift her own consequences now, too. She started crying, said I was cruel, said she never thought I'd be this cold. But I didn't feel cold. I felt clear. I told her I didn't ruin her life. I just stopped funding the fantasy. And if she wanted help, she should try tracking down Kevin since he seemed so eager to play house 3 months ago. She stood there for another minute, like she was waiting for me to crack, to feel sorry for her. But I just turned around and walked back into my garage. I heard her car start. Heard her drive away. And I went back to fixing the lawnmower engine like nothing had happened. Josh came in, handed me a coffee, and asked if I was okay. And honestly, I was better than okay. 6 months ago, I thought losing Chloe would destroy me. But standing in my own garage, in my own house, with friends who actually showed up when things got hard, I realized I hadn't lost anything worth keeping. She chose a hotel room with another man over caring for me after I nearly broke my back keeping us afloat. And now she wanted me to raise another man's kid because her plan blew up in her face. Some people don't deserve second chances. They deserve to live with their choices. And Chloe was learning that lesson the hard way. Do you think I handled this the right way?